What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the ABJ Podcast. Today's guest is going to be the Queen Cobra, KATRINA Creed. What's going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of the ABJ Podcast. Super excited for this one. We'll get a little international today, or by the time this airs, who knows what happens with our country and their country. Everything's up for grabs right now in this insane world that we're living in. But before we get into this interview, I want to say, please check the links below to follow myself on all social media, my guests on all social media, and support whatever links they may be with merchandise. Find out where they are, how to support them, go to shows, all that fun stuff. We do have merchandise for sale. You can grab to support the podcast, and we do have tiered memberships on the podcast. So if it's your first time here, whether you're listening on the audio side of things, whether it be Google, Spotify, a 5-star review goes a very long way. And if you're on YouTube, that thumbs up button, subscribe, hit the bell notification for future interviews also helps out tremendously. If you're watching this as it airs for everybody else, there was an opportunity to see this way before everybody else with that $5 tier membership on the champ level. That gets you early access to a whole bunch of content. And trust me, I am always making content. So I have interviews that are going for months and months and months. This was recorded in January. So if you're watching this, you could have watched it way back then. We have unboxing videos. We have movie reviews, music reviews, the whole nine. It's all there. So we always making new content, doing live streams. Welcome to the ABJ Podcast community. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Also, check out the link if you want to join our Discord and come chat with us, even when the cameras aren't rolling. We're always talking wrestling and everything, nerdy stuff. We're all about all that stuff here on the network. That's pretty much all I got on this side of things. But big thing is just check it out, screenshot it, tag me and my guests, and tell us what you thought of the episode as it goes on. Whether you liked it, hated it, maybe a question I didn't ask that you want more information. Engagement is the best way to do it. And you as the fan have way more opportunities to get these people opportunities to do their art by tagging your local promotion. Say, I want to see more of the Queen Cobra, and maybe they will reach out and get her booked so she can come and bite some people at your local promotion. All right, well, let's get into today's episode. Very, very excited for this one. Got to meet them at Labor of Love WrestleMania weekend, which was a blast. I'll talk a little bit more about a story in a moment, which I was afraid that she was not going to agree to do a 5 questions with me, and I'll say why in a moment. But when you think of amazing people from this country, Canada, you think of the Hearts, you think of Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, Sexy Eddie, and KATRINA Creed. And here we are. Let's get into this one right away. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So Sexy Eddie is the reason why I did not know if you were going to actually do my podcast the first day. Because so that 5 questions were recorded. Sexy Eddie was doing Sexy Eddie in a brewery, bar, restaurant. And right across maybe a couple tables from us is a family eating dinner. And Sexy Eddie is screaming Sexy Eddie things. And he's loud. Very, very loud. Yes. And I remember like looking around the room laughing, but also like, oh my God, this is nuts. And I kept kind of looking at you and you were just like, and I was like, I was just about to go ask you to do it. I'm like, there's no shot at this point. Like the stuff he was screaming, I was like, there's no way she's agreeing. But you did, and it was a great interview, and I'm very thankful you did. But Sexy Eddie is a legend.
Oh my God, yeah, he is. I would say, honestly, probably because I'm not usually fazed by things, but also I know Sexy Eddie. So it was more just like looking at him and being like, oh, there he goes again. Because I don't even remember the full content of what he was saying in that interview, although I rewatched it later when you posted it. So I saw like excerpts of it. But just very Sexy Eddie. I don't even know. I don't have the words to explain him, but he's actually one of my favorite people on the independent scene around here. Oh, he's great. He's honestly one of the nicest and most genuine people. Like, I adore him. But when he gets a few drinks in him, well, there's that Sexy Eddie as well, which is just hilarious to witness.
It's really fun too, because obviously we're not doing the Sexy Eddie podcast, but my partner Lily, she had him sign her jacket, and he's like, "I want you to sign it, on the boob." And before the cameras were even rolling, he was like, "Hey, I just want to make make sure everything, like, he's like that, like his gimmick is his one thing, but he's not like behind the scenes. He's always like, hey, I just want to make sure everything's cool here. Like, are you good? Everything's fine. Like, high five. You know what I mean? Like, he's an absolute sweetheart of a human. But yes, that was I didn't know you were also from Canada and you guys rode the same cruise. And I'm just looking over at you. I'm like, oh my God, because he was and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, not phased. I've partied with Sexy Eddie a few times, so I've witnessed that firsthand.
Yeah. There was a legendary story that was told in the podcast many a times where they were kicked out of a bar because Sexy Eddie got a few drinks to them and couldn't keep his pants on. Like, he was just that they were coming off. They were a restriction. They were his version of the Cobra holding him back. You know what I mean? But yes, I'm very excited.
It sounds about right. I can believe it, 100%.
Yeah, very excited for this because we
Me
are
too,
in
honestly,
the year of the snake. There's a little bit of delay between us. That's probably on my end, but that's that international border. So I'll try to do my best for not stepping on you. But yes, the year of the snake, and you are now on the podcast.
Yes, I know. So, I mean, we're kicking off the year to a good start. It is the year of the snake. So I think it's a good time for me to come on. And honestly, I've been super excited about this ever since we first met almost a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
I've been stoked to do this interview, honestly.
Awesome. That means so much to me. I've been watching a lot of stuff you're doing. Very proud. You just got some gold around your waist. We actually changed the photo of the podcast because of it. But before we get into any of that, tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm KATRINA Creed. As mentioned, I'm from Canada, specifically Montreal, and I'm a professional wrestler.
Yeah, maybe you will be American soon. Who knows? Donald Trump's getting a little crazy. I don't support him, but if things get crazy, I just need to know between you, Sexy Eddie, and whoever I met at Mania, if I have a couch to crash on. If things get crazy, I'm getting out of here. You know what I mean?
All good, man. Yeah, for sure. We got you.
All right, awesome. Perfect. Well, let's dive straight into it. When did you fall in love with the world of professional wrestling?
I mean, I think like most people, I got into it when I was a kid, at least as a fan. So I've always been into darker things, if you couldn't tell with my gimmick and my gear and stuff like that. Even as a kid, for whatever reason, I was always attracted to darker, alternative, more gothic things. So I don't know if it was like the very first thing I ever saw with wrestling, but I still remember the first memory, like the first thing that really had me engaged was The Undertaker. I think like most alternative people who are wrestlers, it's typically The Undertaker and Jeff Hardy, who were two people I was really into, and Lito, of course. But it was The Undertaker. And my first memory of wrestling was I remember hanging out with my cousins and we were watching wrestling that came on TV. And it was The Undertaker during his ministry era. And he was sacrificing Stephanie McMahon. And somehow that spoke to me. And I was
That's
like,
why he had the big chin goatee. That was my favorite look of The Undertaker. Yeah,
he just looked all cool and sleek. Like, I loved his gear. I think it's still probably my favorite look too when I think about it. I just find it kind of troubling in retrospect that like a woman being sacrificed was like the thing that drew me into wrestling, which like I don't know what's going on there psychologically, but that's what spoke to me. And so I remember that being my first memory, and I was just kind of hooked. And I don't think I missed a single episode of Raw for like probably 5-6 years from when I was like 7, about 6 or 7 around there until I was about 12. I was just every Monday I was watching Raw. I never got SmackDown, but Raw I was there. So that's kind of how it started for me. What's that?
You didn't have SmackDown, so you only were able to get the one show?
Yeah, I know. Oh, so man. I missed out on like a bunch of crap. Yeah, which I found out about like later on, or through the WWE Network when that was still a thing. So I kind of like backtracked and found out what was going on otherwise. But back then, it's like we had really rudimentary internet, right? So I wasn't looking up online to see what was going on. Like I had dial up. No one was fucking doing that. So I just stuck to Raw.
It's wild too, because like I'm thinking about your gear, right? And I always when I seen your coat, you have like a big fringe of the coat, which is like a Cobra hood, right? But also, if your first early memory is that your age era of Taker, he had the big collar coat as well.
That's true. I actually never made that connection, but I wonder if that influenced me subconsciously.
That's awesome. So your household was a wrestling household. So you weren't being shied away for being the girl watching pro wrestling. Like they encouraged that they were all for it.
Oh, no, I definitely was. So that was like with my cousins. I was definitely more of like a tomboy when I was a kid, and even more so through like my teenage years, even partly now. Yeah, I definitely, it wasn't encouraged. I mean, I'm Indian, so that was like very much a no thing. Pretty much everything I've done in my life was very much a no thing in Indian culture, which, whoops. But yeah, so that wasn't something that was entirely encouraged, but it was tolerated. But I definitely know in my circle of friends, like I kind of had to keep it a bit on the down low because I wanted to be
Yeah.
cool and be accepted, you know? So whenever I brought it up, like my girlfriends were like, the fuck? So I just keep it to myself. It wasn't something I watched according to them. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. Even like it's impressive to hear you say, because I as a dude who grew up, like I didn't tell my other sports friends that I watched pro wrestling. It wasn't cool, and it was also kept very very secretly. But even like a female in today's time, like it's hard to find your tribe in pro wrestling because not a lot of younger females are willing to say they watch it. So it's interesting. The dynamic is very similar of having to keep pro wrestling a secret. Like I don't care now. I go in public with wrestling
Oh yeah.
t-shirts on. Like I am the guy at the job that everyone's like, do you have every day is a wrestling shirt for you? I'm like, yeah, I'm a proud pro wrestling fan. Yeah.
Yeah,
My lunch can at work is a Stone Cold Steve Austin one. Like I don't give a shit.
that's cute. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like as you age, you stop caring about those things. You know, I'm very much like uncompromising in who I am now. Like I don't give a fuck. You take it or leave it, and that's it. But you know, when we're younger, we're a lot more sensitive towards those things. But I would imagine like over time, it just seems like people are generally more accepting of things. And especially these days, it's kind of cool to be uncool in a way. So a lot of these nerdy things that, you know, 10, 20 years ago were deemed uncool, everyone's into it now, right? So they might be more open about it. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just something I'm noticing, but I feel like there's more and more women who are getting into wrestling, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's women, and I remember like, and just with everyone, every ethnicity, every race group is getting into wrestling. I remember
Yeah.
I went to a live show, and most of my life going to wrestling shows, especially where I live in Pennsylvania, it's very white culture. There's not a lot of diversity.
Hmm.
It's now changing, which is beautiful. But we went to a WWE event, and I remember Bianca's music hitting, and just seeing just the whole front row of these like younger blacker, like young, yeah, not blacker, young black girls, and they looked at Bianca like how my generation looked at Hogan and Shawn and Brett and the Macho Man, and I was like, that's
Hmm.
important for this industry to have that representation of your culture, and they're not the old school of what if you were not a white person, you were deemed as the heel or the foreign heel. You had to play the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like it's changed so much, and it's awesome because it makes wrestling more acceptable for other people and male, female, people of the LGBTQ community, as well as people of color, which is beautiful.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, and that's something that like within like my local scene, we actually have like a pretty decent crop of like women wrestlers. And there's quite a few of us that like are more ethnic and stuff like that. So it's really important to us because we know how lacking that representation was when we were growing up and watching wrestling. Like we're cognizant of essentially what we're doing by being, you know, women wrestlers who some of us are ethnic, and what that could potentially represent to people. And it's something that we really pride ourselves in. I've even had people come up to me being like, hey, you know, my cousin, you know, like this guy more recently, like a month or two ago, was telling me like my little cousin, she's like super into you and stuff like that. And she thinks like you're the best. And it's just so cool that she's able to see someone like her out there doing that, you know? And it's like you don't always fully realize what you're doing and the influence you have, but to hear stuff like that, it's like it just kind of like reaffirms essentially what I'm doing and the importance of it. And I think that's why it's so important to just carry myself in a certain way, both as a wrestler and as a person outside of it, to just try to be a proper influence or a good influence for people who are watching, because you never know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did kind of touch into what kind of a kid you were growing up, but where did you do theater? Where you said you were kind of a tomboy? Did you do theater? Did you play sports? Like, where did you fall when it came to like your friend group and what you did growing up?
So there was a difference between elementary school, I'd say, and high school. I definitely moved around to different schools a lot, not because I got in trouble. It's just how it was. In elementary school, like I literally went to like 5 different elementary schools. And so for most of them, I actually ended up being in the cooler crowd. I was usually hanging out with the popular kids. Except for one school where they're Christian. I don't think they liked me very much. I don't know what the
Yeah.
fuck happened there, but they just weren't into me. Whoops.
Starting off with
But
your Undertaker love probably didn't help, you know.
yeah, I definitely got into a
Undertaker
lot of
now will
trouble.
get you. The Christians will love you if you're a Taker fan now. Now that he's Mark Calloway, he's all yeah.
It's true. It's weird how full circle that went, or like half circle, I guess. It just went on the completely other end of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess they would love me now. But 20 some odd years ago, they were not a fan. But yeah, like for the most part in elementary school, I was kind of always hanging out with the popular kids. And when I went to high school, like we moved away from our area. So I was pretty much just starting fresh entirely. And initially I hung out with kind of popular people. I ditched them actually for people who I just liked more, who were like kind of just like these in-between people. And they eventually ditched me. I think just because like I
You're a
started just
poser.
dressing. Well, I think it was just like I was probably going through shit when I was younger, and they didn't get it, and I was like starting to dress darker and whatever, so they like slowly just kind of like edged me out of the group, and eventually I just started hanging out with like the skaters and burnouts and dropouts, and those are pretty much the people I hung out with for like most of my time in high school. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely my tribe as well. So when did you
So
start
yeah.
pursuing your industry and how did you get started?
So it's something that would always kind of like come up intermittently throughout my life. I wanted to be a wrestler so bad when I was a kid. And my mom's just like, yeah, it's not realistic. So like, okay, I'll try to think of something more proper. But it would always pop up every now and again. And it's something I always considered. What's kind of funny is that like, so about 10 years ago, I was working at a cafe, and my manager is actually my current coach.
Oh wow.
So when I started talking to him, yeah, Shane Hawk, which I'm not sure if you're aware of him, but he's the head coach at IWS, which is my school. Um, and I had also gone to IWS shows like back in like 2008 or 2009. Like I had gone to a few shows already, so I was aware of IWS. And so yeah, I started working at this job. He was my manager. We start talking, and we both realized we're into wrestling. He tells me he's a wrestler, and they were about to open up like my current school, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you should like join and whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I was kind of like on the fence about it. But we just added each other on Facebook, and that was kind of it. And it wasn't until a few years later where like the match that got me into considering becoming a professional wrestler was actually Jay White and Kenny Omega in New Japan. And
That's
that
my
just
first
kind of
New
popped.
Japan match I watched.
What's that?
That's the first New Japan match I watched. I didn't watch
Oh,
Japan for a long time, and I was like, "This Jay White guy looks dope," and I watched it. I left that match more of a Jay White fan than I was a Kenny fan.
but I mean, yeah, honestly, I watched that match, and I think they're both incredible. But I don't know, Jay White just really stood out to me, and he still does. Um, if I don't normally have direct influences, but if there's any one guy who I take more influence from, like he's one of them for sure. But yeah, I love it, and I love that match, and I thought they were great. So I messaged Andrew or Shane Hawk. And yeah, like he's like, yeah, just come by on this day and whatever. And I went thinking it would be something that I would try and probably not like, just because I've done that with different things in my life. And I showed up and I had one practice and I was hooked. And I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool. And that was pretty much it.
So walk us through your school. So when you get to this school and you're there your first time, you're about to do the running of the ropes and hitting everything. Was it harder than your expectations met? And what makes you think that school stood out more than others, or that gravitated you more towards enjoying it?
I think starting with the school itself, I think it's just because I knew Andrew, right, or Shane Hawk. I just knew him, so like I reached out to him, and that was his school. I think it also worked well because I mean the only independent Fed that I had gone to at that point as a fan was IWS, so it
Mhm.
kind of worked out in that way. I didn't realize how big IWS was at that point. IWS is probably one of the biggest Feds in our country, and is maybe one of the biggest Feds like in the continent potentially, just with
Yeah.
its history and stuff. Like it's influenced people in GCW, you know. So I didn't realize kind of like its reach, but it was primarily just because I knew Andrew. And when it comes to actually super difficult, when it comes to just like footwork and positioning and timing, um, super hard on the body. I think a lot of people talk about how difficult it is and how rough it is on the body. That's not really a secret to anyone, but there's so intricate and minute things that go into wrestling to make it happen and to make it good that you don't fully realize as a fan until you're actually practicing it and you're actually a wrestler. Like it's a very intricate endeavor.
Yeah. Now, body wise, has it transformed your body? Putting muscle on, losing weight, gaining weight. Where were you in that aspect? Because like you see people who join and they're 110 pounds, and then a couple years later they're $140 and they're jacked, they're shredded up, or they come in
Yeah.
really heavy and they drop 100 pounds their first week they're there.
If only were that easy. 1 week,
Yeah.
100 pounds. Yeah. Um,
One story I had, they said they were there almost like maybe just over a year, and they said they were close to 85 pounds lost in their
wow.
year. Yeah, that's how much they like how hard their school was, or how much condition they put themselves through.
Yeah, I can believe it. We actually have someone at our school. His gimmick name or worker name is Tommy California, and so him too. He lost a comparable amount. I don't know what it was, 60, 80 pounds within about a year or so. So,
Yeah,
pretty significant amount, which is awesome for him. But for me, it's like I was pretty average at that point. In terms of like weight and stuff, but I kind of fluctuated. Like I was just like at an okay average weight for a while, and then I kind of put on a bit of weight because I was doing like heavier lifts. And then now I've just slimmed down, and I put on quite a bit of muscle. I'd say I'm like
yeah,
pretty stocky, and I don't notice a lot of physical things, which is weird being a wrestler, but I don't notice these types of things. It's only been when people I haven't seen in a while when I meet, they're like, "Oh, hey, you're all, bulky and stuff." I'm like, "Oh shit, I guess I'm muscular now."
yeah. It's
So yeah, I mean, now it's just with the training and just like the training regimen that the actual weights and strength training and stuff has made it so that I've just packed on quite a bit of muscle now. So yeah,
yeah, lifting humans will do that too. But
yeah,
it's
as well.
wild. It's wild too how crazy women's wrestling and women just in general has changed. Like it went from, you had to be the small swimsuit and you couldn't have you can have definition, but you couldn't be bulky. And then China comes, and then that kind of changes the game. And now the prototype of pro wrestling is like bodybuilders, gymnasts. Like it's changed so drastically in such a short amount of time.
It has, and I think with like everything, it's just something that will fluctuate, right? As is
Mhm.
life, but also when it comes to that. So it's something you just have to adapt to, in whatever sense. But yeah.
Yeah, the women's wrestling is almost like the dudes, where it's like you're five something, 120 pounds. You see Rhea Ripley, you're not gonna beat Hulk
Right?
Hogan. You know what I mean? Like the women are like, now we know what the guys went through this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. It's good fucking luck.
Yeah, we were just actually having a conversation about that in our thing. Like, well, what about this wrestler, this wrestler, this wrestler? Like, in the WWE, they're a body image. They're a body image company, and the
They
top of
are
the women's division are 5 foot, close to 6 foot tall girls that are women that are like can bench press most dudes. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
so if you're coming in a 4'11", 112 pounds, like your Joshi wrestlers are gonna have a hard time adapting to the WWE scale. So it is
for
wild how
sure.
much it's changing. In the beginning stages, how was it finding your place as a pro wrestler?
I mean, I think that's something I'm still trying to do. You know, I haven't been doing this for too long. Um, like in total, when you put everything together, I've been on shows or doing shows for about 2.5 years now. So I'm still kind of finding my place. Um, and it's been uh it's been hard to get my footing in the sense that I feel like it's been really fast paced for me. Especially the last year. I had a pretty crazy last year. And even the year before that was pretty significant as well. And I thought there's no way I'd be able to top that. And so I kind of went in my last year being like, don't be discouraged if I don't have as big of a year as I did the first year, because it was a lot of things that happened. And this past year has been just insane. So it's been hard for me to like fully be grounded because I'm just going from one thing to another to another to another, just constantly. I'm just constantly on, right? Um, and in that sense, it's like I just keep going, and I haven't really settled anywhere yet. Um, it's not something I've really thought of because there's just so much to do usually. So it's not even something I've really considered in that sense. But I'm still just trying to find my way, I guess.
Yeah. What have been some setbacks or adversities you've had to overcome?
There's been quite a few. I mean, within wrestling or just in
In
general.
general, it could be in general, maybe injuries, personal lives, things that just maybe were hard to navigate with whether it's your personal life in pro wrestling or just in the world of pro wrestling.
I mean, just in my personal life, without getting too much into it, I mean, my childhood was a bit was pretty messed up, so there's a lot of stuff that I had to get over regarding that,
Mhm.
to even get to the point where I'd be like starting as a pro wrestler. Even in my teens and part of my 20s, I would never say I had a full-blown addiction, but I think just as a consequence of probably like childhood stuff, I definitely had substance abuse issues
Mm.
that actually I curbed when I started getting into wrestling. I feel like
Which
when I
is
went back
wild.
to
That's
school.
usually people pick them up.
I
Being a
know.
pro wrestler is like being a rock star. It's like, oh, cool, this is here. But even though that in pro wrestling has changed. Most people are just
As
California
well.
sober. The drinking's there, but mostly every show it just smells like weed. And the
Yeah.
pills are usually not there anymore. No one's passing around anything crazy. It's just a little bit of weed.
Yeah, for sure. I think in that sense too, as you mentioned, it's calmed down. It's not as bad as it was beforehand.
Yeah.
But that is always a joke I tell people, where I'm like, imagine how fucked up my life was before for wrestling to have been the thing to stabilize it, right?
Yeah.
Which is like kind of true. That's the thing that stabilized me the most. But that gives you an idea of just like what the stuff I was doing before and stuff like that. It was just I hung out in the metal scene a lot. There's a lot of parties and stuff to give you an
Yeah.
idea. So yeah, like just to even get to the point it was okay to start wrestling was in itself a struggle, but I got here. And then when I started wrestling, I mean, I was thinking about it when I read over the questions that you sent. And there's been quite a few, even when it comes to wrestling. I mean, when I started before the pandemic, and then the world just ended, right? I started for
Mhm.
a couple of months, and then the world ended, and I was like, oh, okay. So then, everything stopped. And then after about a year of intermittent training, when it was on and off, eventually I stopped training, and I only started doing shows again at the end of 2022. So
Mhm.
then when I started doing shows again at the end of 2022, about a month or two later, my dad passed away. So then I had to deal with that kind of always being in the background of my first proper year of being a wrestler. And then when that started kind of stabilizing, less than a year after, my boyfriend and I broke up, and we had been together for about 4 years, like living together, and had known each other for a year before. So that was pretty significant for me to lose as well. So then I had to deal with that, right? And it's really only been like the past little bit where it's like the first time I've been wrestling and nothing crazy has been going on. Like there's been other shit that had transpired during that time as well that was quite stressful. Um, but this is kind of the first time where I'm like, oh, okay, like nothing's going on, and I'm just kind of waiting for like the other shoe to drop. I'm like, is something
Yeah,
else gonna happen?
you're like something's gonna. It's too quiet. This is
Yeah,
how every horror movie goes. They lure you into a false security. It gets quiet, and then I'm brushing my teeth in the mirror, and I close it, and there's a monster behind me.
Yeah, type of thing. So I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. but they also say bad things happen in threes. So, like the world ended, my dad passed away, my boyfriend and I broke up. I think we're in the clear. So I should be good in
No
theory.
more adversity for the rest of your life. You're good. You're in the clear.
Hopefully. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. That's so sorry, I completely lost my place. That was a great answer. I learned so much about you in such a little spot there. So when have you feel like you hit your peak, or have you yet in professional wrestling? I know you said you only been in about 2 years, but have you had any, I guess the best way to answer this, I'll kind of combine the two questions. Have you had any moments, because everything's peaks and valleys, even if you're at the peak of your game, you're at WrestleMania, you're going to have the fall and come back up fall. But so have you had any moments or accomplishments that you really are proud of yourself so far in your career?
Yeah, I've had quite a few. So initially, when I started wrestling, I thought it was going to be a hobby. I'd do it once every month or so on a weekend, because I got into it a bit later. Right, I'm in my early 30s. So my goal was to win the IWS Women's Championship, and that was like the end goal for me. I'm like, that's the title I want to win, and I won that on my 30th match. Right, so then I was like, oh well. Okay, now I got this. What do I do? Right. So, I won that. And then, my trainers, like I've been trained by Speedball, Mike Bailey. I've been trained by
I
Daddy
love
Magic, Matt
Speedball.
Bernard. Yeah, Speedball. Oh, I
and
love
Daddy
Speedball.
Magic.
Yeah.
Right.
There were two of my trainers.
Commentary. I love him on commentary. I've been watching him since the Chikara days when he was one of the bad boys. Yeah.
Yeah. He's hilarious. I love him. And Speedball too, they're both really great. Actually, Daddy Magic was.
I don't think Speedball needs any more accomplishments or pats on the back. That guy is the GOAT right now. I hope now that the contract's up and everything's going the way they're going, I want him to pop up somewhere big, because they deserve it more than anyone in the world right now. Speedball is just such a workhorse. Yeah.
Yeah, Speedball's amazing. Like as a wrestler, as a person, as a mentor, like I really, myself and others who have been trained by him, are so lucky to have a trainer like him. He's just a monumental individual on so many levels. And to just be able to learn from someone like that, it has just been incredible. But yeah, I mean, I was trained by both of them, and Daddy Magic's just hilarious and a character, and I adore him. But there are two people who were training me, and then they got signed, right? So that's when the gears started turning, and I'm like, oh, well, this is maybe more in my reach than I realized. And so I'm like, well, let me just see where this goes, and let me just try to keep pushing myself, right? And then things just kept happening. Like I ended up on Ring of Honor. I think on my 47th or 48th match, I ended up going overseas in the end, to England, in London. I actually wrestled for this fed called Eve, which is a pretty big deal over there. I mean, I've wrestled quite a few big names, which especially in Canada is really hard to do, because a lot of these names don't always cross into Canada to wrestle here. So when you get the honor to wrestle a big name, it's actually a huge deal. It's not like they're just hovering around the indies like in the States, where they're a bit more accessible in that sense. Like when you get those matchups, it's a pretty big deal. And I got quite a few of them. Like I got Thunder Rosa, who was probably my biggest match to date. It was in a 4-way, but I thought it was just so great, that Uno, who pretty much is the one who organized it, Evil Uno is the one who does Mystery Wrestling.
I love Mystery Wrestling so much.
It's hilarious. It's honestly one of my favorite places to work and to watch. Like it's the best. And
I just want to get famous enough to be on the commentary team. I love that. Like how they do commentary is how I want to do commentary, but then I do that at independent shows and everyone hates it, because I have fun when I'm on comedy. I'm not trying to say I was him before him, but I do commentary like Pat McAfee. That's just how I've always done it from my started. And then everyone's like this, like I wasn't getting booked or signed to do it because like, yo, you're not taking it. That's like, I'm not saying I don't take it seriously, because I do, but I do cut loose a little bit. I'm myself. When you book me, you're getting me. I don't play a character. My brand has been developed. And then when Pat McAfee got signed, people were like, all right, come on in, do more of your thing. It's more like, oh no, now I can do it. Like,
now it's okay.
Yeah, Mystery Wrestling is so much fun, like because they don't take themselves seriously, and I truly like the Chikara. Like Evil Uno came from Chikara as well. Like it's it's fun. Like wrestling can be scary and entertaining and the highs and lows, but then also like you can do someone where they put themselves through a table because someone tried to fake the Eddie Guerrero spot. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
you have TPA who takes off 14 t-shirts, even though he's been doing that before Mystery Wrestling. But that's a place where those gimmicks can thrive and do fun things. Mystery Wrestling is
100%.
beautiful. Yeah.
It's great. And I'm so glad it's taking off as it is. And I mean, that's just the beautiful thing about wrestling, right? There's just different things for everyone. And there's so many different emotions that you can go through with wrestling, right?
Mhm.
That's the beauty of what it is. It's just using your body to convey all of these different things, right? And connect with people in that way. But yeah, I mean, I love comedy wrestling, to be honest. I didn't know I was into comedy wrestling until I started doing it. Not that I've done it extensively. And that 4-way with Thunder Rosa was just a straight up match, but I've done comedy bits in other matches and I actually love it. I actually love comedy wrestling. I think it's great. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I quite enjoy it.
So I was looking through some of your matches, and there's one you said a name, but there's one that truly stands out for me because she's one of my favorite female wrestlers. Not even just of all time. I got to work with her a few times. Really, really cool person to be around. But unfortunately, they took your belt. Masha Slamovich, the current TNA Women's Champion. You got to tangle with her. Glad to see you're alive still because she's terrifying.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I'm okay.
How was it mixing it up with Masha? And it was a triple threat, correct?
It was, yeah. That match was so. Masha's actually someone I've wanted to wrestle for a while. I love her intensity. I love her presence in the ring. That's something I try to emulate as a wrestler. So she's someone I've always looked up to as a wrestler, and she was one of the top people that I wanted to wrestle. So I didn't expect it to happen so soon. But it was awesome just being able to wrestle her, but at the same time to have Christara, who's one of my good friends, who's also a really good wrestler, to be able to do that with her too, and to experience that with her. It was a bit weird because I'm not usually a face. I'm actually usually a heel, but for IWS and for whatever reason, usually on the bigger platforms like Ring of Honor and stuff, they put me as a face, and I'm like, great, I have no fucking experience doing this. But yeah, so that was a bit weird for me, you know, being a face, but overall, it was just so incredible to be able to wrestle with someone like her, to just be able to learn from someone like her, just by wrestling her. And she's someone who behind the scenes, oh, sorry, my cat's here and she might jump up at certain points, but yeah, to be able to learn from her, but also her as a person, she's just really cool. She's really sweet as a person, really nice, really humble, not egotistical at all, just very chill as a person. And so every time I've met her, I just have more and more respect for her. Oh, sorry, my cat's just knocking.
You're good,
baby.
Good.
Sorry.
That usually happens to me, but mine are not around right now. So that's
fair. Yeah. But yeah, she's very she's just such a cool person. And every time I've met her, I just respect her more and more. That match was actually so significant for me that I actually from there decided that I need to be trained by her. So it's actually because of her, partly. I also wanted to go to the States to get more bookings and stuff. Like I've been wrestling. Huh?
You've been going to Battlefield?
Battlefield.
Battle Club.
Oh, Battle Club, yes. Well, I'm going to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that is such a I put that school over as much as possible. There's so many good people there. Oh my god, Jorge Sante. You're gonna mix it up with Cosmic and Rembrandt and Sammy Chaos and oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. I'm so upset that I'm not saying their name. Why are they not? Oh, Prince Ahmed, which is one of my favorite human beings on the planet.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know all of them, but believe it or not, what was really weird is I did this random tour in Toronto where we were doing like, dude, it was like 2 matches a day for like 2.5 weeks. I did about close to 30 matches in 18 days or something. It was fucking crazy. Like, I did Wrestling Open and then C4, and then I did this Toronto tour, and it was like 30 matches in 18 days, which I wanted to get reps in to become a better wrestler, and I think it helped, but Jesus, man, that was fucked. All that to say that it was kind of a random it's like a fair tour, right? Essentially. And who do I meet on my first day there? I'm tagging with Rembrandt and a few people who came down from that school. And I'm like, no shit, I'm actually planning on going there like in the winter for a few months. So I actually met some of the people from that school and I'm like, this is great. Like now I know y'all. I also met like Sam
Rem's a
Laterna,
really good friend of mine. Love Rem to death.
he seems really cool, man. Like he just has this nice like vibe and like warmth about him. Like I got on with him pretty great. And the rest of the crew seemed really nice too. So I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to kick it with these guys.
Such an amazing. I said the name wrong because we do have a promotion near us named Battlefield, and I always confuse Battlefield with Battle Club. You know, ADHD, dyslexia sometimes kicks in, but no, Battle Club is unbelievable. So you're gonna, it's awesome. You're gonna have a blast there. That's a great school.
I'm very, very excited. So I'm actually going to be doing that at the end of February. And I'm just going to be hanging around the States for a couple months and finish off with Mania Week in Vegas before like probably coming back here. So yeah, that's just a testament to how much of a great performer Masha is. Like I already respected her a lot as a wrestler beforehand, but just being in the ring with her and just learning from her, I realized how much of a great mind she has for wrestling and just for like creating spots and just an understanding of like how to structure a match. And also just being in the ring with her, man. Like I know you can see it when you watch her matches. She has this ambiance and this presence about her, but being in the ring with her just like solidified it. And the intensity is just like, it's like you don't fully realize what it is until you're in there experiencing it with her, man. And she's just something else. She's on another level. I'm like, yo, I need to like be around this person more and just like learn from her.
Oh, I did a show with her. It was called CFW or CFU UFC backwards. Okay. And it's Combat Fights Unlimited. And it's usually, it was a lot of women matches, but it was like cage fighting. And it's gimmick cage fighting. And she was a champion for a while. And they have the same thing that you come out with a corner, like a team, like a corner man, and you're the stool, and between rounds, you do it like round style. It was super, super fun. And I got to be her corner man it was because her Julius Smokes wasn't going to do it because that was her corner man, and he just wanted to do Julius Smokes things. So I was the corner man, and in the middle of a fight, her hair tie comes out. And it just gets stuck. So in between rounds, she's like, get my hair tie out. And I'm like, Masha, it is not it. And she goes, rip it out. I go, not gonna do that. And she just looks at me like, because she's still obviously in character, she's keeping her mind state. She just grabs her hair tie and goes, and she just goes to hand to me, and it's ripped in half. And I go, I need a hair tie. I need a hair tie. Sam Laterna's sneaking a hair tie through the cage. The bell rings. She has to go and fight with her hair in front of her face. Next round comes out. I'm putting Masha's hair up in a bun, and everyone's like, like the dude corner man's putting up her hair. Like it was wild. It was wild. It was a really fun moment. But yeah, she's just like, rip it out. I go, not doing that.
Oh man, I don't blame you, man, honestly. And I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, but awesome. It's crazy last time you were in the States because you wrestled at a place that normally is my hangout spot, but I was in Philly. So you were at Pilgaroo Brewing Company for Speedball Mike Daily show, which that's like 15 minutes from my house. Like that's cool. My spot. Like I'm there all the time. And then the next day you're at Labor of Love, where I got to meet you, and you're wrestling for one of the sponsors of the podcast Above Your Head, the High Tensioning. You wrestled for the High Tensioning Wrestling Network. Their Campeones de Ranas medal with Rob Radke. You were in, well, now he was Robbie Radke at that time, but he has since changed his name. So both times you wrestled in the States, Mania weekend, both were ties to my local bar and the network that I work with. So that's pretty wild.
That's funny, man. Small world. I don't know if that's just a sign where it's like I needed to be on this podcast, perhaps.
Yeah, but, and then you're going to go to the Battle Club, and you're going to go and work with all of my friends. That's super dope.
Yeah, yeah, I'm super stoked. Yeah, dude, Mania Week was like crazy. That was awesome too, man. Like I actually the day before, like I wrestled fucking Joey Janela. It was like this little like comedy like 3-way thing, but yeah, that was nuts, man. Mania Week was just. God, I could go on and on about Mania Week. It was pretty awesome and in a really crazy way. But yeah, I had such a great time.
Yeah, maybe those stories aren't all podcast ready, but yeah.
Yeah, some of them I gotta be a bit off the record for sure.
Yeah. So influences and role models. I said you don't. You said you don't really pull from a lot of people. Maybe Jay White, but if you do have any role models or influences, maybe that don't influence your wrestling style, but just in general, maybe help you get to a good mind state, or you listen to them, or you look for them for inspiration. Who would they be?
Even in like my day-to-day life, I don't really have any role models. I try to take, like in wrestling, I just try to take from like different people, because I think a lot of people have different things to offer in terms of different mindsets, philosophies. So I'm really just open to like hearing anyone out, really. But not only that, it's like I very much like to think critically and kind of carve my own path when it comes to things in wrestling, but also just in day-to-day stuff. When it comes to like wrestling more so, I'm trying to be more intentional about watching Jay White, watching Randy Orton, because I'm trying to incorporate more of those elements into my character, where it's just kind of them like slinking around and being all snake-like. So I'm starting to do that more and more, and be more intentional about that. Again, like when it comes to just like taking influence from one person, I think it's really important for people to think critically about everything, and to not just take what people say or an ideology as gospel without thinking about what that's insinuating or what that actually means, which I feel like sometimes people just do because it's easier than not actually analyzing, you know, what you're looking at or concepts and figuring it out for yourself, which can be dangerous sometimes, just in general. So I mean, you see that with religion, political ideologies, people just need to think more critically about things like that, I think.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, if there's any one person though that I could say is a bit of a role model within wrestling, is probably Speedball, to be honest. Not only is he my mentor, one of my mentors, but he is someone who, even at the level he is at, he is always still looking out for us, as well as anyone who is trying to make a name for themselves, even if he didn't necessarily train them. If he sees that people are really trying to put themselves out there and they're really like pushing themselves, he will use his platform to spotlight them. And he will try to go out of his way to help people. Like he gave me that match with Joey Janela just because I was going down to Philly. I went down to Philly for Mania Week with no bookings, and I saw he had a show, and I'm like, hey, can you put me on? Like, if you have something, it's fine. And you fucking put me in a match with Joey Janela. You know what I mean? But he's just that type of person. It's like, if he sees that you're trying, even if he has no direct tie with you, he's going to try to help you out. And he's just a very giving. Huh?
He did for me. I asked for a podcast. He was a guest on this podcast while he was a TNA signed person, and he goes, "We did it." And I said, "All right, here's my question. It's recorded. It's done." And he goes, "Here's what you should do. You should email them. Say we already did the interview. I approved it. They said don't post it until we watch it." So I said okay. I seen they watched it because I had the one view because they were the only one with the link. And because it was private, and then I'm like, hey, update, I'd like to release this, and it went months and months, and they weren't responding, and I messaged him, and he's like, release it, I'll take the heat. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, if they say anything, I will 100% eat that, but like, I gave you my time, I want to be on your podcast, I want to help you get some eyes, release it. And I was like, are you sure? I don't want to get, and he goes, no, you deserve it, you're a good guy. Because I would go to the Pilgrim shows, and I would like, hey, I have a trunk full of equipment, like, you can have it. I have lights, I have extra cameras, I have whatever you need. Like, that's just what I'm not a wrestler, but I have a production thing. Like, I like cameras and everything like that. So I bring that with me every show I go, because if I can enhance the place I'm at, then I want to do so. But yeah, super, super awesome guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's not even surprising to me. He does stuff like that constantly just to be able to help people out and to use his platform to do that. And I know sometimes
he'll watch it into he'll watch someone's match. Like, you put it in the Discord, like, hey, watch this random independent person's match, and he'll watch it and be like, they're really good, go support them, and he'll watch your match to critique it and talk about it on his Twitch channel. Like, I love him.
100%. He's excellent as a person. He's one of like the most generous and just compassionate and sweetest people I've met, which is not always easy to come by in this industry. He as well.
Yes,
as well. Veda's also awesome. They're both really great at being able, at just using their platform and putting a spotlight on people who might not have that traction yet, you know, and they don't need to do that. And they do it often. So it's very, very sweet of them to support other independent wrestlers in that way, especially when they don't need to. And I know sometimes like people might like, he might rub people the wrong way because he doesn't really cut corners. He's very much like, he will tell you how he feels. He's very honest. And you know, people might take that the wrong way, but I will like defend Emil or Speedball until my death. I know it's dramatic, but he is such a good guy. And he's so great. Like he's just spectacular. And he's one of like the best humans I've met in wrestling. And not only that, even at his level, he's still training all the time. He will still attend seminars. He's still like, he actually is back in Montreal for a couple of months while he figures out his work visa stuff. So he's actually been like, this guy, okay, is outside of regular like class hours, he is taking time out of his schedule to pretty much give like group private classes so that we can go and pretty much like, he'll take 3 hours out of his week. We'll go and ask him like, you know, he'll ask us rather like what we want to learn, and we just tell it to him, and he goes over everything, and he does it for free. I've offered to pay him, and he doesn't want it. He's just doing it to help, and he'll just go to regular classes. Like he'll be coached. He'll just go to our regular classes and just train as if he's one of us, even at this level. So it's just, I just want to always carry that sense of compassion and goodwill, but also just that desire to like learn constantly, no matter what level I get to. So he's just someone I aspire to be in that sense.
Yeah, I love, and that's essentially, that's the goal of this podcast. Like, obviously I want to grow my brand, but my overall brand is to get big enough and work hard enough that more people know who I am and build this thing so I can turn around and say, this is a wrestler, or this is a person, this is someone doing their art that you should go follow. And Speedball does that better than anyone in our business, and that's 100% the truth. Because like these Pilgaroo shows, like he'll bring in Janela, he'll bring in Marcus, he'll bring in Joey Ryan, he'll bring in Jimmy Lloyd, like these names that people know, and then book people who are in their first year to get an opportunity to work with them. And then by the end of the show, everyone's like, I love Journey Burke, I love Junie Underwood, I love Mookie Summers. Like, and you become a fan of these people because Speedball knows to put this next generation in with the people who already know, and uses his work. Like I said, like how everything you just said, he works so hard and puts his body through everything and goes through all these crazy things just to give back to somebody else. He's unbelievable. Yeah,
he is. He's incredible as a wrestler and as a person, for real.
Yeah. I wanted to also, before you're talking about your other coach, Menard, I was showing Lily old videos of like promos, and I always show her like Macho Man ones because they crack me up. And I said, even when Macho Man's not in the promo, he's doing things in the background that you're watching. He draws your eye to him. Even when he's not doing something, he's mouthing like, oh yeah. And I was like, there's only one person today in wrestling who still does that. And then I turn on a Matt Menard promo, and he's not even talking. He's just chewing his gum extra hard. Yeah. I was like, I love that in pro wrestling. Like he had like just that, like the small things in life, just like, oh my God. He should just teach promo class.
Oh, he's excellent. And that's actually something, it's not anything I've noticed, but that's actually a really good point. But yeah, his promos are just excellent, and his character is just hilarious. And he's actually not obviously that intense in real life. Like it's obviously a way more cranked up version of his personality, but he really is that hilarious in real life. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever met. I love him, honestly. He's great. And he's actually the one who helped to get me on Ring of Honor as well. Like I didn't even ask him.
Who did you work on the Ring of Honor show?
Layla Hirsch. So okay. Yeah. And that was really sweet. She's very, very nice as a person. Very easy to work with, very warm. How
strong is she? She looks like she's insanely strong.
I mean, I didn't notice like a marked difference. She was like, she worked me, you know, but she wasn't like over the top aggressive, like gentle enough. She did literally just give me like a gut wrench suplex though. And I was like, oh, should I like post off there to help? She's like, nah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Her legs are like as big as my head. She has some of the biggest quads I've ever seen in my life. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, no, she can be strong in that sense for sure.
Yeah, super strong. So what goals do you have for yourself, either personally or in your industry?
So when it comes to like to wrestling. I did go to Europe for a couple of weeks last year. So I pretty much want to go back to Europe as well as the States and pretty much just expand there. Like I've been on Wrestling Open a few times and Beyond Wrestling. So I just want to continue working there and just do other promotions around that area. And then when I go back to Europe, I've made some connections potentially for bigger feds. So hopefully that follows through. And when I go back, I just want to pursue that and stay there for a couple months. I had excellent training when I was over in Ireland. So I'd like to be able to continue to pursue that. I love Ireland too. Irish people are like my favorite. They're just the best. And so I love to just return there and base myself out of there and just continue training and just continue expanding over there. So that's primarily what I want to do in wrestling, as well as continue expanding, back home as well. When it comes to personally, I mean, it's really hard. Last year I was really, really busy and I just didn't have time for anything outside of my shoot job and wrestling. So I told myself this year I was going to try to be more intentional about like connecting with people and hanging out with my friends. I'm lucky in the sense that like outside of wrestling, I do have like some really good friends who are genuine people and supportive. Like I'm so lucky to have these people in my life. And I feel like I need to nurture those relationships a bit. And just to be able to do regular people stuff. So I'm trying, but it's hard. I've purposefully like not been taking on as many bookings because I mean I'm expecting to go to the States in a bit, as well as I was just telling myself I'm going to be a bit more choosy this year, so I can hang out with people more. But then on my free time, I just end up doing wrestling stuff. Like I'm showing up to wrestling shows and I'm just doing wrestling content and I'm just watching matches and I'm like, dude, I need to stop. So
Yeah.
I'm trying, but it's really hard.
When you come to the States, shoot me a message of what dates you're in the area. And if it falls on a day where I know some promotions are running shows, and if you're there and you can get the transportation, I'll put your name out to them. I know one that depending on when you get there, especially if you're going to be in the New York area and you're going to be at the Battle Club place, Rem's the champion of a place that you could probably roll with him, and they're always looking for people to work. And you'll probably can work like a Sammy Chaos, who's also probably going to be coming from the same place you're coming from.
Yeah.
So you could probably they're called PPW. They're a really good promotion.
Okay.
Yeah, I work on weekends now, so I definitely won't be able to go because all my weekends, all my work always is weekends. So I'll definitely be rooting for you via the internet and watching later. But yeah, I'll try to see where I can connect you when it comes to some opportunities when it comes to coming down here to see if we can get you on some things.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No problem. When you're not doing all wrestling and you do have a moment to yourself, do you have any hobbies or interests outside of pro wrestling?
No, but I should probably get some. I'm trying to, like I said, just hang out with my friends some more. I started painting randomly a couple years back, and so I will do that like periodically. So I'm trying to do that a bit more. I'm thinking about maybe coming up with like a Twitch like stream just because I do like gaming when I have some downtime. And I feel like I know I'm thinking about wrestling still, but I feel like it might be a good way to kind of build a community outside of wrestling to get them into my wrestling stuff too. And it's also just fun for me to do and to just hang out with people and talk to them. So yeah, I'm really trying to discover hobbies outside of wrestling, which is tough.
Impossible.
But
Yeah. I'm a content creator in a wrestling space, and I barely have time to I have to do movie reviews and other stuff, and I'm just like, but Monday's Raw, Tuesday's NXT, Wednesday's Dynamite, Thursday's TNA. Like I don't have time. Like I have all this content to watch. But yeah, I totally feel that. One thing I will say, and I love when professional wrestlers do it, especially people who travel as much as you do. You should start vlogging. But don't look at it as a vlog. Do it like a journal. Like treat it like a journal. Like because even if no one watches it, you can go back and watch it. Be like, oh my god, look how far I come. Or look at these cool moments I have. And that's what I started doing. And I really recommend it to other people. Cause I personally like watching them. I like watching people's vlogs where they travel and see how they get ready for shows and their mental state going in and their mental state going out. And I think it's super fascinating.
Yeah. That's true, honest. And I personally really like watching that stuff too. And I've thought about it and I'm like, oh, I don't know if people are going to be into this or is it maybe just me putting in like effort for nothing, in the sense that like sometimes when it comes to content, as wrestlers, we're content creators too, like it or not, it's just the reality. I look into kind of like the views and the interactions and stuff like that I get on posts. Pictures and stuff like that get a lot of posts. Some reels, like short ones, do. But when I would spend time like splicing up like a match and putting like a little highlight reel, it's like that wouldn't get as much views, or it's like after like 20 seconds or whatever it is, like the viewership goes down, and I'm like, man, am I just like putting all this time and effort into nothing? Because fuck, it takes a while to like piece that all together. So when it came to vlogs, I'm like, man, is anyone gonna really watch this? Like, I don't know.
It's awesome if they do, but if they don't, it's still for you to go back and be like,
Yeah,
yeah, you
as
know what I mean?
well.
Like it's like writing a journal. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I
Mhm,
look at it. Like I can't go and travel with my vlog now. So a lot of
mhm.
it's just like, hey, this week I did an episode of the podcast and my guest was this and I had a really good time and I just kind of like, and yeah, this is kind of where I'm at mentally today. Like it's just kind of like
Yeah.
me getting it out too, and maybe kind of keep myself accountable for putting it out there. But no one watches it, but it's fun for me. I don't know. I enjoy like that therapeutic side of it, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's really important just to help process things in general. Even like writing, I started writing again more recently, just about stuff that's going on in my mind, and it just helps to kind of process everything. And it's a nice way to keep yourself grounded, especially with something as volatile as wrestling, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of maybe just a different medium to do that. So yeah, sounds like it
Do
could
you
be
do
nice.
you do you listen to music a lot? Are you a music person, a movie person? Like, do you use those to unwind at all?
Um, I definitely need to schedule more unwinding times because I do not do that enough. So I don't really watch movies as much as I would like to. I listen to music a lot though, either when I'm driving or working out, or I've been really getting into classical music lately. Well, lately, the past 2 days while I've been painting and writing and shit. But it's been cool, and I'm just like chilling. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty nice.
What's some of your go-to bands or artists?
Oh, geez. So I mean, one of my favorites of all time is Pantera, hence Cowboys from Hell. I know Phil Anselmo is like maybe a racist, which fuck, sucks to have that on me, but
Yeah, yeah.
I still do love Pantera. There's no
Dimebag
denying
said
that.
some things back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, maybe not the band to get tattooed on me, shit, but I fucking still love Pantera. Like it or not, they're still one of my favorites. I'm definitely
First
more
time,
of a metalhead. Sorry?
first time I ever smoked, I watched the music video to 5 minutes alone.
Oh yeah.
And when he would pull the strings down, I was so destroyed. I was like, "Is that real? Is that really happening?"
Yeah, I love that, man. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, Dimebag's a man when it comes to like music shit anyway. Like, fuck, that shit is great. You'll never find another band that sounds exactly like Pantera. And it's like, they were so unique in a way that like every album was different, but it was still Pantera and you knew it, but it was so
Yeah,
distinct. And there's no one that came around that sounds like them. They were really just their own thing, man. Um, I don't think they're a band that can be replicated.
right.
And I just love them. I still haven't gotten sick of them. And part of the reason I like snake imagery so much, I just like it in general, but also Pantera, the Great Southern Trendkill, has just a snake on it. They use a lot of snakes in their imagery too, so that's definitely a huge influence. But Pantera's dope as fuck. I am a big metalhead, so I do like metal stuff typically, but I kind of like everything. Like I was saying, I was listening to classical music. I like pop music, electronic stuff. Like I like a lot of things. Um, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, recently I've been getting back into White Zombie, who I was always into. They have one of my favorite albums of all time, Astro Creep 2000. That shit is sick. Weird thinking that album is like over 30 years old, which is
Yeah.
fucked up. I thought of that
I
the other day. I was like, what?
I brought when I was a kid, they had bring your favorite album to school in music class, and our music teacher was super cool. Like, so I didn't get in a lot of trouble for the stuff I brought, but he was like, I can't play this song. But like, I remember the first CD I ever brought, and he's like, all right, why did you pick this song? What does the song mean to you? And you had to tell the class, which I thought this was a smart idea, but nobody liked it as much as I did, and it didn't last very long. But I brought a Rob Zombie CD. I brought Hillbilly Deluxe,
Oh
and
yeah.
I picked Living Dead Girl as my song before it was like a hit. And he's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it gives me like, and this is literally what I said as a middle schooler who knew nothing about, I knew more than I probably should have, but I was like, it reminds me of like the Manson family for some reason, and like the girls who follow the Manson family. Like when I hear this song, that's what I envision of them going and committing atrocities. But like this is their soundtrack to them doing it. And my music teacher's like, "How the fuck do you know about the Manson family?"
Oh man.
Yeah. And I'm like, there I am, 11, talking about Cowboys, the Hillbilly Deluxe and Cowboys from Hell. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'm obsessed right now with Ghost. Do you ever listen to Ghost?
I never got into them too much,
Oh,
but
the gimmick, the wrestling side of the gimmick with like the story, the backstory, and them playing a different character. I'm hooked. Yeah.
what's the backstory? I didn't know there was lore.
So yeah, so they're essentially the Papa Emeritus is a
Mhm.
pope who's the lead singer, but every album or every so many albums they change popes and they change
Right.
a different character, but it's still the same guy, but he conducts himself differently.
Oh,
But like,
cool.
but you get invested in that character, and then that character disappears, and you're like, oh man, I really missed that one. Like, we kind of want him back, and then they kill him all. Like, there's a whole lore to them, and each album something different. They change their style a little bit. Yeah, and it's
Cool.
but even like on a real level, like the guy who is the lead singer, he writes, composes, and does everything, and then hires a band to come and record it with him. And then when he tours overseas, he is a completely different band than when he tours in America. And there's been rumors, and well, not just rumors, but it's been proven, but they won't tell you when and how. But sometimes people that are playing on stage, those instruments are real, like people like Dave Grohl drummed a Ghost show, but nobody knows what show he drummed because all the people in the band are covered completely head to toe in a costume.
Wow, that's kind of sick, actually.
None of their personal identities are out there until when the lead singer got sued by one of his band members saying that he wanted more of the rights. And he's like, you're a hired gun. You don't get any rights. But when he got sued, it put his name in public light, and then people knew who Papa was, and it kind of ruined the reason he started the band like that way in the first place. But they're super sick. Metalheads don't like them because they're classified as metal, but they're not as hard. But I like them.
But you know, like so I used to hang out in the metal scene, like really underground metal scene, you know. And people love Ghost. Actually, like in Montreal anyway, there's so many people who are into Ghost in the metal scene, and they were just a band that I never got. But mostly because of the vocals. But if you're saying, I don't know if the vocals are just the same throughout. And at the time it wasn't heavy enough for me. Like now I like kind of lighter stuff, whereas like back then 10 years ago I was like metal like all the time. That's all I listened to.
Screams, yeah,
no, the thing. That's it. Can't deviate from that. So maybe I'd be more open to listening to them now, and especially if there's like a different ambiance, or I guess ambiance on every album. You know, I'm not opposed to listening to them again, but all that to say, there's a lot of metalheads around here that fucking love Ghost, honestly.
I love them. Their shows are so much fun too. There's a whole bit, like they just come out like a concert movie where it's so good. I went to the theaters and everything to see it. I'm obsessed. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end here. So one of the last couple ones here is, what type of fans are your favorite, and what are your least favorite type of fans when it comes to the professional wrestling world?
I'm like pretty easy in that sense. Like I'm not usually too bothered by people, and I love pretty much every fan. Any fan that's really just sweet about it and appreciative of what I do. Like it honestly means the world when people come up to me and tell me how much they like my work or how supportive they are of me. Like it really means a lot. I just want to give a special shout out to this one fan that we have in our area, Maddie. He's actually just the best and the sweetest. He implicates himself in the scene, by helping out with merch, like at C4 and Mystery, and by doing like different things. But he's just so passionate about our scene and so supportive. Like he'll write little blurbs about different wrestlers that he's into in the scene as a way to support them and encourage them. He makes art for all of his favorite wrestlers, and he's made a shit ton of art for people. And it's just amazing that he has that time. He even makes like actual like figures for wrestlers. Like he'll make the figures, I think it's out of clay or something. I'm not really sure what the material is, but he'll make like actual figures to go with the big poster that he drew of people, and he draws really well. And and then he comes up with like their own little box as if they're action figures in the box. And then once that's done with the actual picture that he drew up, he presents it to them. He's just incredible. Like, I
We
love
have
this guy.
we have a kid named Gavin, and his dad come to the shows. Now Gavin cosplays as wrestlers. He's a little guy. He
Mm.
comes to the shows. He dresses as wrestlers, but when he dresses as wrestlers, he knows he can cut a promo as them, the whole nine. But he does posters of wrestlers and draws them and does the whole nine. This is the one I just recently got. It's hard to see, hopefully, but I have a Shawn Michaels, The Boyhood Dream.
Oh yeah,
Right
I
here.
see it. Yeah.
But that's
Oh.
a custom Gavin. Him and his dad drew that for me.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
sweet,
I know
dude.
I'm a big Shawn guy.
I
Fans
love
are
shit
awesome.
like
Yeah.
that. For real,
Yeah.
man. Like there's quite a few different fans out there that I just love, you know. And they're so sweet and supportive, and it fucking warms my heart, honestly.
I got a custom figure made, but it wasn't one I was able to keep. It's in his fig fed. I think I'm his commentator, but it's hilarious because you'll love this as a Canadian. My figure is essentially Kevin Owens' face and body with AJ Styles' hair.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah, that's
Hey
my
man, whatever
figure.
works.
Yeah, I get called Kevin Owens with long hair quite a bit. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that, honestly.
Yeah.
That's so great. Honestly, I think it's really just so endearing to me that like people are so influenced by what we do, or they appreciate what we do so much that in turn they create art too, you know, or they create something just out of appreciation for what we do. Like that means so much that they're taking the time out of their schedule to do something for us like that. Like it really means a lot, and it's so sweet. And yeah, I just love Maddie. He's the best. So shout out to Maddie. And so many other fans that are around here that are just great. So they're my favorite. But when it comes to like maybe shit that people shouldn't do, like, you know, I actually love hugging people. I love hugging fans, even a guy or girl. Like if you're not being weird and you're just saying, "Hey, you're so cool," and this and that, whatever. Like it means a lot to me, and I love just hugging people to kind of like do that
You feel their
transference of
energy.
like,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. You know, it's just like I want to hug him and just like there's this nice, like you're saying, energy there. You know, like a transfer of just warmth and awesomeness. But sometimes people get a little weird, you know, whether it's during that hug or even prior to it, which makes me not want to hug you. You know, if
Yeah.
you're being weird and you're like, I'm going to shake your hand, you're going to kiss it, or you're going to go kiss my cheek when that's like not part of the agreement, dude. I'm definitely not going to want to fucking give you a hug. So,
Yeah.
like, people just need to be a bit more mindful of things like that. You know, like, especially it's like I'm not even giving you a hug yet and you're already trying to kiss me. Weird. Even if I'm giving you a hug, that's not an excuse to
I
try to kiss me either.
I wish
uh
I was there to see something like that, because if I see like a fan, and this is just who I am as a person, I'm pretty comfortable with my sexuality. But if I seen a dude try to kiss a girl, I would just walk up and be like, "Can I get one too?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, come here, kiss me." Like I like no. You see how it's inappropriate? You see,
Right.
I don't. I'm not mean. I just hold the mirror up sometimes. You know?
No, straight up. It's like sometimes people don't really fully understand how their actions might come across or how it might
Yeah.
feel. And there's sometimes people who just like maybe aren't fully, you know, like I know there's some people that I've met that maybe they're just not always fully there.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had to tell them like nicely and gently, just being like, hey, you know, it's kind of inappropriate when you do that, you know, and I'm not trying to be mean, but it's just we can shake hands instead, or we could do
Yeah.
this. And usually they're good with it. They don't take it so bad and it's all right. But sometimes they just might not fully understand it, and you
Yeah.
just kind of have to establish that boundary in a
Especially in
gentle way.
wrestling, we do have a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
fans who are maybe disabilities or stuff like that. Yeah.
Mhm. As well. Yeah.
So what are some words of encouragement that you would give for a beginner in not just wrestling, but anything they want to chase their dreams? What would you tell them?
Um Man, in general, if you really, really want something, whatever it might be, and if it's a bit off the beaten path, um, it's going to take a lot of your time, and you're going to really have to commit to it. You're going to have to commit to it fully, and you're going to have to probably sacrifice a lot of time when it comes to just, you know, connecting with people. I mean, geez, I don't know. I've made a lot of engagements, like marriages and baby showers and all of that, in between bookings or on like 3 hours of sleep. And then I would go to a fucking baby shower and then go to a booking. I've done it, you know, but I'm at the baby shower for an hour and I'm like, the whole time. It's not
Mhm.
exactly quality time, you know? I'm just there to say that I was there. But you're going to cut into a lot of that time. Sometimes people can't even make those events. So you have to be kind of realistic about that commitment. When it comes to a personal life, I barely have a personal life at this point because I'm just working and wrestling. That's all I'm doing. So realistically, that's probably what you're going to be doing, especially if you're really busy. So that's something you have to be realistic about. But if you care about it enough, if it speaks to you enough, if it's as fulfilling as wrestling is for me, then it's worth it. And you're pretty much going to find a way to make it happen. But it's not going to be easy, man. There's lots of ups and downs, but you just have to figure out a way to roll with it. Throughout the highs and the lows, man, you got to figure out a way.
Yeah.
So I got to readjust this.
You're good. Last one here. What are you grateful for, and are you currently happy?
So I'm grateful for a lot of shit, man. I'm grateful for, just having the people that I have in my life. Hold on, let me try to adjust this. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
You're
not super grateful for my tech capabilities or lack thereof, but I am grateful for the friends that I have in my life. I have a lot of really supportive people in my corner, really great, genuine people, and I know that's not easy to come by in wrestling or otherwise, even in real life. So I'm very lucky to have that. I'm lucky to have a support system in wrestling and to have genuine people who have my back there too, which I know is tough. I'm grateful that I've had so many people looking out for me and they've given me opportunities when they didn't need to. And I'm just so grateful for those people. I'm grateful to have a house, right? I'm grateful to be able to be in a warm room right now with food. I'm grateful for my fucking cats and that I have them to come home to every day. I'm grateful that I can drink fucking clean water, man. Like there's so many, I'm grateful for my health. There's so much shit that we just overlook because of the hustle and bustle of regular life and wrestling life. And it's very easy to get caught up in, oh, I want this and I want that and I want this opportunity for myself. We get it. It's because we care. But like there's so much shit that we have as a baseline that we're so used to that I think as workers or just in general, we need to just recognize like there's a lot of shit going on in our lives that's pretty cool. I'd say, am I happy generally? Mostly? I'd say I'm very fulfilled. And I think wrestling does that for me. I think in my regular life, outside of wrestling, I'm content as a person. Like I am. And I realized that when I was forced to take a few weeks off after a shoulder injury. And it was the first time I just stopped and I wasn't wrestling or working out. And I was calm and content. And I'm like, wow, I forgot what this felt like. And it kind of made me realize, okay, I'm generally content in my day-to-day life. But then after about a week or two, you start getting that itch. And I'm like, man, I need to start wrestling again. And when I'm wrestling and when I'm doing this, it's in my day-to-day life, I'm content and I'm like this in a good way. But when I'm in my wrestling life, which is all the time now, it's all consuming. It's very much like this, right? It's very much high and low. But it is so fulfilling in a way that nothing else is in my life. So I can't let it go. And I need it more than wrestling needs me. So I will hold on to it. But man, there's a lot of highs and lows in wrestling, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So
what are some things that like if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. Well, what are some of the things that spark those lows? Like what are some things that drive the like to your lows?
So I think it's one thing in particular. I think you always have to, at least if you're someone like me and thinks the way that I do, I am very much a perfectionist in a way, which I'm trying to figure out how to go about that in a way that's sustainable over the long term, because I realize it is not sustainable or healthy over the long term, especially in something like wrestling. I'm very much a perfectionist, which is fine when it comes to academics because I can push myself until the end of the semester and I get straight A's and great, it's done. And maybe work to an extent. But wrestling is something that keeps taking. There is no end. So if you're constantly firing on all cylinders, there's no end to that, right? Which I'm starting to realize now. It's like I keep pushing myself, and that's great. I feel like I've established myself and I've gotten to a pretty high point in my area. But now I have to make sure I stay there. And there's other people who are coming and I have to make sure I adapt. And there's also other areas I have to go to and I have to prove myself there. And I have to get these people's attention. And those, like it just doesn't stop. And I'm very much someone who always wants to improve and progress. It's just part of who I am as a person and as a wrestler. So I'm constantly pushing myself.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, there's no like, there's satisfaction, but it's fleeting in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to learn how to, I'm trying to find this balance between continuously pushing myself in such a way, because I feel like it has gotten me as far as it has. So there's an importance to it, but balancing that with being okay with what I've done, which is very difficult for me to do. So that's one thing. There's many things in wrestling, but that's one off the top of my head.
I do the same thing. I put a lot of pressure on myself that maybe doesn't be needed to be there, but I've learned to like really embrace the lows. Like when you're at a low, that means there's nowhere else to go but up in there, but you have to be grateful you're at the lows, because I kind of said the other day, like every success story is someone standing on a mountain of their failures, but if you don't fail and you don't mess up and you don't make those mistakes, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you stay stagnant. And sometimes people don't even realize, like, and so some people are comfortable with stagnant. And I don't see that. I don't know how you can do that, but it's definitely wild. But last one here, where can people find and support you?
Yeah, so I have a Facebook page now. I created one a few days ago. So you can find me on Facebook, Katrina Creed, which, you can see right there, Katrina Creed, spelled the same way. On Twitter as well, Katrina Creed, spelled the same way, but altogether, no space. And on Instagram, I still haven't figured it out, but it's cat.creed. I need to buy out the Katrina Creed on Insta or something.
Awesome. Do you have merch pages or anything that people can support you, even if they're not from your area, or can go to a show and do that support that way?
Geez, I should probably come up with an online store. That's actually not a bad idea, which is
I'll help you out.
another project.
I'm free during the week. I can help you set one up. It doesn't take long.
Oh, sweet. Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, thank you. So maybe one day, but for now, not so much. But thank you for that offer. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's awesome. That's pretty much all I got. I'm very thankful. Anything else you want to add or put out there before we close out?
Honestly, man, I think the future is what you make of it. So whatever it is that you want to do in your life, don't let anyone tell you can't, and just push yourself to do it and believe that you can, and you will. You'll figure out a way if you want it.
What was the podcast everything you wanted it to be? I said you were very excited for a while. Did I drop the ball? Did we do good? How did we do?
No, you're very personable. You're very easy to talk to. So, this is pretty much what I was expecting. It's very easy to converse with you. So I 10 out of 10.
Thank you so much. Well, if anybody listening wants to be a guest in the podcast, hit me up, shoot me a message. I would love to have more people on to hear their stories and have a conversation. I don't need to know everything about you. Trust me, I can carry a conversation for the first time I ever meet you. That's kind of my gift, if I have any. But always hit up the podcast. If you made it this far and you haven't hit that 5-star review on the auto platforms, please do so. And if you're on YouTube and made it this far, thumbs up, bell notifications, subscribe, all those things. We are on the quest to hit 10,000 subscribers. Now, like, why? I'm like, because when I go places, the higher your subscriber count, that's how you get more opportunities. It's silly, it's stupid, and I'm not paying for them because I don't want to do that. That's not my thing. I'm punk rock DIY till I die, so I will grow by word of mouth. So if you enjoyed it, please tell some people and get more people on here. If you want to tell your story, you don't have to just be a pro wrestler. I've talked to musicians, artists, people that are acting, or you just have a crazy story you've been through and you want someone to hear it because it might inspire somebody else. My platform is always open to those people. We'll see you guys next time. Links below. Please support Katrina. Follow her on all social media and go see her at some shows when she's here in the States. And you'll be at Mania weekend in Vegas?
I will be. Will you be?
I will not be. No, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
I will not have any time off for any time unless this podcast explodes and I get really popular and I can quit my job. Then I'll be in Vegas. But until then, I probably won't be. But I won't be at any wrestling shows for the foreseeable future. But we are doing things where we're doing like match reviews and stuff. So I'm going to be watching content. So I can't go to shows, but I want some people to send me matches or send me shows to watch and review. So if you want to send me that match over, I'll watch a couple matches and we can do content watching some of your stuff and review it.
Oh, cool. Okay, right on. I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, well, that'll do it for us. Here's some music by the Converse Kid, and we'll see you guys next time.